Delta outbreak in New South Wales continues to escalate by the day. Tough restrictions are being extended in Sydney's COVID epicentre, and now the nation's capital is joining the growing list of areas under lockdown. New South Wales recorded 2 more deaths, both men in their 90s. 345 new local cases were detected over the past day. 3 more LGAs have been deemed areas of concern. Bayside, Burwood and Strathfield will be subjected to extra lockdown restrictions from 5 o'clock this afternoon. So they join Blacktown, Campbelltown, Canterbury, Bankstown, Cumberland, Fairfield, Georges River, Liverpool, Parramatta and some suburbs of Penrith. So that's now 12 LGAs considered to be hotspots. 24 of today's cases were in the Hunter region of New South Wales, prompting a week-long extension of the lockdown there. That was due to expire tomorrow. And a positive COVID case has thrust the ACT into a 7-day lockdown. That comes into force at 5 o'clock this afternoon. Our reporter Cecilia Connell is in Strathfield in Sydney's inner west, one of those new areas of concern. Good afternoon there, Cecilia. So clear signs that the virus is still spreading through the city.
Unfortunately, that is the case, Ros. 345 cases of COVID-19 were recorded in New South Wales in the 24 hours to 8 p.m. last night. Now, of these, 57 were in the community for their entire infectious period, 34 for part of that period, and the isolation status of 138 of those cases remains unknown. Of the 345 new cases today, Ros, the source of infection for 217 remains under investigation. It brings the total number of cases since the Sydney Delta outbreak began in June to 6,491. Ros, sadly, there have been another 2 deaths in the 24 hours to 8 p.m. last night. 2 men in their 90s have died after contracting the virus. One of these men died at Liverpool Hospital. Now, he contracted that infection in connection to that cluster at Liverpool Hospital after a staff member worked while unknowingly infectious. It brings the total number of deaths connected to the Liverpool Hospital cluster to 7. Ros, another man in his 90s also died, and that's connected to the outbreak at the Wyoming Aged Care Facility at Summerhill after a worker also attended that facility while unknowingly infectious. Today's 2 deaths brings the total number of deaths in the current outbreak to 36. It comes as there's over 370 people in hospitals across New South Wales, Ros, with 62 of these in the intensive care unit and 29 requiring ventilation. Health authorities said today that of those 62 people in intensive care, 57 are unvaccinated and 5 have received the first dose of vaccination. In terms of the spread across Sydney, Ros, the Premier Gladys Berejiklian said that numbers have been stabilising in Fairfield, one of those LGAs of concern. And while numbers still remain high in Canterbury, Bankstown, they are beginning to stabilise. But she said the front is moving to the Cumberland LGA now and is urging residents in Merrylands, Auburn and Granville to be on high alert, but also those living in the inner west and in Camden as well. It comes as 3 additional LGAs are added to the list of hotspots across Sydney. From 5 p.m. this afternoon, the LGAs of Bayside, Burwood and here in Strathfield will be subject to those stricter lockdown orders. Residents here will only be able to exercise within 5 kilometres of their home, shop for essential goods and services within that 5-kilometre radius, and will only be allowed to leave if they are classified as one of those authorised workers. Here's what the New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian had to say.
Some of those areas of concern have nobody in streets. The streets are bare. But we know it only takes a handful of people every day doing the wrong thing to cause major setbacks. And we are in a very difficult situation and we want to turn the tide and we're not leaving any stone unturned.
Cecilia, the state government is looking at ways to crack down on compliance. What can we expect on that?
That's right, Ros. The New South Wales Police Commissioner, Mick Fuller, is currently looking at additional compliance measures as this Delta outbreak does spread across the state. He's currently in consultation with the state government, with public health officials, as well as his counterparts across regional New South Wales, the local police area commands across New South Wales, to formulate a plan as to what that might look like, Ros. That will be presented to Crisis Cabinet tomorrow, so we'll have more details as to that plan in the next 24 hours or so. But in the past 24 hours, police have issued 407 infringement notices. 176 of these were for people not wearing masks, and 56 people have been charged in the last 24 hours for not complying with public health orders. So police are really urging people to stay at home and comply with those directions. Ros?
Cecilia, thanks. 8 communities in Western Sydney are into their first day of lockdown after a COVID alert for a remote town in the region with a large Indigenous population. Here's reporter Gary John Lysett, who's in Walgett. Gary John, hi there. So health authorities are concerned about the situation there?
Yeah, g'day, Ros. Health authorities are really concerned about the situation here in Walgett after a man from this community, which has a really high Indigenous population, around 40% according to the last census. He tested positive just yesterday. It sent the Walgett Shire local government area, as well as several other LGAs across Western New South Wales, into a week-long lockdown. Look, health authorities are really concerned. We heard from the Health Minister, Brad Hazzard, today. He was saying that there is, the capacity may not be there for Walgett to handle an outbreak if there was a really big one. And here's what he had to say.
There are very strong Indigenous communities. I think the second biggest building in Walgett is actually the Aboriginal Medical Service. And I know, because I received text messages last night, that they're short-staffed, like everywhere else in the health system at the moment. And I know that they would like to have access to more staff and vaccine. Obviously, the Aboriginal population was identified by the federal government as its area of responsibility earlier on in the 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. And there's still a very substantial percentage, in fact, by far the majority of Aboriginal people in that northwestern section of our state have not received the vaccine.
Now, in response to those concerns, there has been an additional 4,000 vaccines that are going to be sent up here to Walgett. 1,000 of those are going to be Pfizer, just to give the community here that another line of defence against this Delta strain.
Numbers like there. Looks like that you're at a testing centre.
Yeah, look, Ros, testing has been really good here today. You can see behind me there's a great big long line that snakes down the road, and it's been pretty much like that since we arrived here around mid-morning. So a lot of people really coming up, doing their bit to try and get on the front foot of this outbreak. Regional communities don't want an outbreak like the ones we've seen in Sydney and other parts of regional areas being out here in the remote northwest. So they're doing everything possible to do their bit to try and curb the tide.
And overall, how are people there responding to the lockdown?
Yeah, look, I've spoken to quite a few people here today. I think overall people are really trying to follow the health rules. So, they're not wanting to go outside, they're not wanting to mingle with people. I've spoken with some people today that are saying, I'm staying at home, I'm not going to be talking to anybody really outside of my home. There's a lot of people here that have vulnerable elderly people, elderly Indigenous people as well at their homes. So they're doing everything they can to try and keep those people safe as well. But if you walk up and down the streets, they're very quiet at the moment. Lots of people wearing masks, so a lot of people really doing the right thing here in Walgett.
Thanks, Gary. In the face of rising cases, the lockdown in the Hunter region of New South Wales is to be extended for another 7 days. Here's reporter Nick Hose. Hi, Nick. Is there much surprise there that this lockdown is going to continue?
That's right, Ros. I think it's the lockdown that everybody was expecting. The question is, why did health authorities wait until this morning to let us know? Because every single day since last Thursday, we've had new infections in the community. The cases have been growing. They haven't been going away. I had a chat to some locals. I'm here at Newcastle Beach, and I had a chat to some people a short time ago. Nobody really thought we'd be out of lockdown by tonight. Everybody thinking that, yes, it would be extended. Interestingly, quite a few people I spoke to actually believe that the fate of the Hunter New England region is intrinsically tied to Greater Sydney. People sort of expressing a view that they believe that we will be in some form of lockdown until Greater Sydney can get a better handle of the numbers happening there. So not so much frustration, but I guess a sense of expectation. The question really is now, Ros, for how long will we remain in lockdown for?
Yeah. And Nick, what do we know about the latest cases in the area there?
Well, Ros, in the past 24 hours, we have recorded the highest daily average of cases since last Thursday. That's 24 new cases in the past 24 hours. That brings the total number of cases in this outbreak to 77. We were expecting it to be a high number because there was an outbreak at 3 nursing homes here in the Hunter New England region. 12 of those cases are linked to a nursing home in Lake Macquarie. There's also 7 cases in Newcastle and a number of cases in Maitland. I think crucially of that number, only 6 were infectious in the community, which is an important number for us to get down, but we are still seeing unlinked chains of transmission. Many of the cases were able to be linked back to a group from Western Sydney that attended a beach party here in Newcastle, but we are still seeing unlinked chains of transmission. So I really believe, Ros, that the next 24 hours to 48 hours will be very crucial for this region.
Thanks, Nick. The ACT will go into lockdown for a week from 5 o'clock this afternoon after a local case emerged in Canberra. Authorities say the infected man spent time in the community while infectious. Reporter Harry Frost is in Canberra. Good afternoon, Harry. So what do we know about this new case?
Well, Ros, this case is a man from the Gungahlin region. He's in his early 20s. The Gungahlin region is in the north of the city. It's understood he was infectious while in the community since Sunday, the 8th of August until yesterday, and there's a number of exposure locations across Canberra, some 14, which include a supermarket, a number of stores and a shopping centre, a gym and several bars as well. Now, there's also been several wastewater detections in both the centre, the south and the north of the city, and authorities say that there's a number of close contacts, so they won't say just how many yet because they're still just trying to work that out. Fortunately, this man used the Check in Canberra app, the ACT government's contact tracing application, so they're fairly confident they know where he's been, but they're still just going through his details now, interviewing him to find out exactly where he's been over the past few days. They're not exactly sure just how he came to be infected. Now, for the ACT, the Chief Minister, he's always said that if we did have any cases here, he would lock down hard and fast, and this afternoon he announced that. Take a listen.
The purpose of a lockdown is to stop people moving unnecessarily. The virus only transmits when people move around and come into contact with each other. So the objective here is to reduce the movement of people and to reduce the transmission potential of this outbreak.
So, Harry, what will the ACT's lockdown look like?
Well, the ACT has avoided tight restrictions for around 13 months now, since last year, so a lot of the restrictions this lockdown will be unfamiliar to Canberrans. It's a 7-day lockdown from 5 p.m. this evening. Residents can only leave their homes for essential purposes. That's essential employment, healthcare, essential groceries and supplies, and any sort of browsing in supermarkets or stores will be discouraged. General retail, though, that'll be closed altogether, and hospitality can only operate for takeaway. Canberrans will be able to go out and exercise for 1 hour a day, but schools will be closed. Students will have to be at home, and there'll be no education, home learning going on over the next 7-day period. Additional testing centres are being set up. There's one being set up at the Brindabella Business Park near the Canberra Airport. There's other testing centres already operating, though they're expecting to have long wait times at those areas.
And Harry, how have people in Canberra reacted to news of this case and, of course, the lockdown?
Well, Roz, as I said, Canberrans are pretty unfamiliar, unlike residents in most other capital cities, with lockdowns over the last 12 months or so. Within an hour of the announcement of this lockdown, there was reports of panic buying in supermarkets right across the city. Now, the Health Minister, Rachel Stephen-Smith, she was urging people to not panic and make sure that they know that essential services will be available. Take a listen.
This is a very serious situation and we want you to take it seriously. But we also want you to stay calm and be thoughtful about your actions. We've already heard that we're starting to see some panic buying at our supermarkets. So, like every other jurisdiction has had to do, we want to remind you that supermarkets will remain open and that grocery shopping will continue to be allowed during this 7-day lockdown. So there is no need for panic buying.
As we've seen in lockdowns in other capital cities right around the country, when these happen, there's a lot of questions for residents. People are being urged to visit the ACT government's COVID-19 website for more information.
Thanks, Harry. Victoria has recorded 21 new local cases overnight, as well as another 2 people who tested positive after arriving from interstate. Health authorities are trying to find the source of 4 mystery infections. Here's reporter Stephen Schubert. Stephen, tell us more about these most recent cases.
G'day, Ros. 21 new cases here in Victoria. The good news is that 15 of them were already isolating while they were infectious. And if you're looking for a silver lining, and here in Melbourne we are, that is 71% of new cases in isolation. And that's a number that has been increasing as this lockdown's been wearing on. That's important because authorities are saying it's that number and the number of mystery cases that will determine whether Melbourne's lockdown is lifted or is extended. So it's a number that everyone here is watching very closely. There are 3 mystery cases in Glenroy in Melbourne's northwest today. They're spread across 2 separate households that authorities can't work out if they're linked at all. So this comes after yesterday there was positive wastewater tests in the northwest suburbs of Melbourne. Authorities asked people in that region to go get tested, and so are feeling vindicated that yes, they have found some positive cases there, but they think there may be more cases in those suburbs around Glenroy, so are urging people in that area to get tested. There's also 2 new cases from interstate recorded in our numbers today after 2 people flew into Melbourne from Sydney. For more on this, let's have a listen to our testing commander, Jerome Weimar.
We have 2 women who travelled together on Monday the 9th of August, so Monday just gone, who flew in from Sydney on the QF 471 about 5 p.m. And arrived in Melbourne. They did not have the right permit with them. No permit would have been issued. It's an extreme zone. They were stopped by our authorised officers and taken into hotel quarantine. Yesterday, both of them tested positive. This is the risk of interstate travel at this point in time.
And Stephen, what's the Victorian government announced in terms of business support today?
More support for businesses who are affected by this lockdown, Ros. So these grants are based on existing support programs that have been rolled out during previous lockdowns. For example, one program is for licensed venues. There's about 7,000 across Melbourne that are locked down that can't earn money at the moment, so they'll be eligible for grants of between $5,000 and $20,000. And this is all automatic, so anyone who received a grant in a previous lockdown will get another grant. And there's also $10,000 grants for businesses who didn't receive grants in previous lockdowns. So this, of course, won't make a huge difference to a lot of businesses that are losing a lot of money, but the government's hoping that it will help some of these businesses survive, Ros.
Stephen, thank you. As the New South Wales Delta outbreak worsens, it's been revealed that the Health Department's COVID information in more than 60 languages hasn't been updated for almost 8 weeks. Dr Kenneth McCrory is a representative for the Royal Australian College of GPs in southwest Sydney, where the Delta crisis remains at its worst. And he joined us now. Hi there, Kenneth. Thanks for being with us. How big a problem is this for people in your community?
Oh, hi, Ross. It's quite significant. We've got people struggling already. We've got the lowest vaccination rate in the state still. We're only running at about 17% at the moment, which is pretty much below par for the entire country, not just New South Wales. We have a massive amount of culturally diverse, linguistically diverse people in our region, and they're being let down again with poor information, with information 8 weeks, 2 months out of date, which is nonsense. We have 1 in 5 houses in this area. The language at home spoken is Arabic or Vietnamese, and they can't even get up-to-date advice from our Federal Department of Health website, which is disappointing us. We want to be working together, we want to be pushing people coming along to their GPs, have a talk, get some advice, make some decisions and get vaccinated. As soon as we can. Life won't go back to normal until we have 80% plus people vaccinated.
So if the information on the website is nearly 2 months old, which specific information is now out of date?
Well, we've still got advice. If you go into the Arabic or one of the other languages on the website, they're being told if they're over 50, Astra's still the favourite. They're not being told if they're between 18 and 59 they can get access to Astra now. We don't have advice there that Pfizer's available at the GP surgeries. We don't even have advice that Astra's available at the pharmacists on these websites yet. That's 63 languages, and that's a big chunk of our community being let down.
Well, what proportion of people in your community, Kenneth, would you say rely on this translated information and on this specific website?
Yeah, as I said, we've got probably 40% of houses in the region speak other languages at the home. We have thousands of people that have very little, if any, English language. But that's part of a vibrant, diverse culture. That's what we want to have. We all benefit from that. But we need to be looking out for those individuals as well. We need to be supporting them. They're the most vulnerable, or one of the most vulnerable groups in our community. They have poor health literacy, they have poor literacy, they have lower attendance and poorer health outcomes than the average population. And letting down those people reflects poorly on all of us.
So would you say that this has prolonged the outbreak or slowed progress in getting on top of cases or getting more people vaccinated, Kenneth?
I'd agree with that completely. The message from day one is about getting people vaccinated. And as I said, we're only at 17% locally. This country, pushing 23, which is still nowhere near where we need to be safe. We're having people dying every day unnecessarily. It's all preventative. We have 200-300 people in hospital at the moment. We have quite a few, 50-odd in ICU being ventilated. If you look at the numbers, none of them have been fully vaccinated. So it's 100% protective against dying in the significant illness if you have your 2 vaccines. The numbers are straightforward. We just need to get supply out here and we need to get more vaccines in shoulders. We've had some updates recently about pregnant women as well. So I really want to get that message out there tonight or today as well, that pregnant women at any stage of their pregnancy, recommended by ATAGI and the colleges of general practice and obstetrics and gynecology, that the vaccine is safe. We know that, and we need to get the message out to all languages about pregnancy needing vaccine as well.
The Federal Department of Health says that while every effort is made to ensure translated materials are updated, it's also important, they say, that they're accurate and that that process can result in a short delay. What's your response to that?
My definition of short is not 8 weeks. If it was a priority, and we're not just talking rhetoric about supporting our people that are vulnerable and in high-risk populations, then it would be looked at immediately and updated immediately. Someone needs to be checking these daily and, double-checking them with our community leaders, with our experts in other languages as well to make sure there's no errors. We don't want the Google translation happening as previously. But it needs to be prioritised, and this is just smoke and mirrors unless we're actually getting in and doing it every day. Otherwise, we're going to be in this lockdown for months and months and months to go.
Dr. Kenneth McCrory, thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Roz.
Next month's Royal Adelaide show has been cancelled. The decision was made due to concerns about coronavirus cases interstate and the inability of show ride operators to travel due to border restrictions. It is the second year in a row the event has been cancelled. South Australia's Premier Stephen Marshall says the decision was made with huge regret. The High Court has rejected an application on behalf of a 4-year-old asylum seeker from Biloela in Queensland, which could have cleared the way for her to apply for a protection visa. The girl and her family are now in Perth after she became ill on Christmas Island, where they were in immigration detention. Elizabeth Byrne reports.
Tanika Murugappan, her father Nadez, mother Priya and older sister Kopika have fought a long battle to stay in Australia. They were moved from Billawila, where they'd settled, when their visas ran out. Even though both girls were born in Australia, because their parents are deemed illegal arrivals, they are not even eligible to apply for a protection visa. The family has now made a plea for the Minister Alex Hawke to use his powers to intervene and allow Tanika to make an application.
My community of Billawila is where the girls will getting better, be safe. Please, Minister Hawke, let us return to our community in Billawila.
Supporters of the family say they're disappointed in the result, but they're not giving up. Mr Hawke says it would be inappropriate for him to comment while there were ongoing legal matters.
Sue Lannon is here now with your business news.
Good afternoon. Telstra says its business has reached a turning point as it launches a nearly $1.4 billion share buyback. Now, the telco saw annual profit rise 3.4% to $1.9 billion, although revenue fell by nearly 12%. Good news for shareholders, they get a final dividend of 8 cents a share fully franked. That includes a special dividend. That makes a full year payout of 16 cents a share. However, the Telstra boss Andy Penn says the firm faces headwinds. The ban on international travel and therefore weak population growth is having an impact on profit margins. However, he says the telco will maintain its dividend policy.
Our focus really has been to ensure we're on the right trajectory to sustain that 16-cent dividend for shareholders out to FY23.
Let's have a look at other profit results now. The insurer QBE swung from loss to profit. It made a half-year net profit of $441 million compared to a loss of $712 million last year. Investors get an interim dividend of 11 cents a share. Power firm AGL made a loss of $2 billion last financial year. It wrote down nearly $3 billion worth of assets. A final dividend of 34 cents a share unfranked for investors. And the department store Myer expects a return to profit for 2021. That's despite store closures and the impact of COVID. A net loss last year of $11 million. National Australia Bank saw third quarter profit up 10% to $1.7 billion as bad debts fell. It's predicting a strong rebound once the COVID lockdowns are eased. And AMP saw interim profit drop by 1 quarter. That's because of lower earnings from AMP Capital and its investment unit. Also continued to see a big outflow of funds because of various scandals. And it says it's completed its review of customer compensation from those scandals, with payments stepping up in the third quarter. A quick look at the markets. The All Ordinaries rose 1/5 early on. It's run out of steam now, up a little bit. Going up today, consumer and oil stocks going down, miners and financials. And looking at the Australian dollar, it jumped overnight on the release of tame US inflation data, now buying around 73.7 US cents. Now, Asian shares have been hit by worries about the Delta variant. Shanghai markets lower. China plans to target the online insurance industry as its crackdown on companies widens. Now, in the US, we saw inflation rise 0.5% in July and 5.4% over the year. And we're sorry about that problem with the graphics. Let's have a look now at commodities. Spot gold's a bit weaker. Oil prices are higher today, and that's finance.
Thanks, Sue. Time for a look at the weather now with Nate Byrne.
A front clearing the southeast into the Tasman means that conditions are easing pretty quickly behind it as a broad ridge of high pressure comes in from the west. It's settling the skies, really clearing things out. Onshore winds will mean a few showers. Lots of heat is being trapped up north once again, and we're going to see temperatures spiking today and tomorrow, with fire danger increasing tomorrow as well, in particular with severe conditions for the Darwin and Adelaide River area. Today things are a little bit more settled. We're just seeing the last of those falls clearing out of the east. Some wet weather just lingering for parts of the south as as well. Now, that high is going to become established and will be the dominant feature for the week ahead. Some fronts for the south at times. The southwest will cop a fairly weak one on Saturday, but Tasmania is not getting the advantage of that ridge. It's going to see front after front, and we could see 100 millimetres of rain or more for some parts of the west of the state over the week ahead. Everywhere else is staying relatively settled, though there will be some falls at times for parts of the south and along the east coast. But tomorrow, to end the week, it's looking pretty fine almost across the board. 24 in Brisbane, 20 in Sydney, 16 in Canberra, and Melbourne's starting to warm up again. 18 degrees the top for you. Hobart, you'll see a shower or two. It's getting to 14. Similar weather for Adelaide, 16 the top there. Perth, a finally dry one. Mostly sunny, you're getting to 20, and Darwin's staying hot as well with a top of 35.
That's ABC News for now. I'm Ros Childs. Stay with us for Capitol Hill with Jane Norman.